The records of the galactic Concord were always correct. Every species in the galaxy knew this. The Concord had existed for 12,000 years. Their databases contained the history of 1,000,000 worlds. Their sensors could detect a ship from across a star system. Their records did not make mistakes. The human colony ship Obstinate had been destroyed 40 years ago. The file was clear. A catastrophic drive failure in the Valen Expanse. The ship had exploded. There were no survivors. The Concorde had marked the location with a warning beacon and moved on. Humans were still new to the galaxy back then. They were still learning. Sometimes the galaxy taught hard lessons. The file was closed. The matter was finished. So when survey vessel Candris detected an unknown ship limping through Sector 7 Gamma, no one expected anything unusual. Ships got lost all the time. Pirates sometimes wandered too far from their territory. Occasionally, a species thought extinct would reappear from some forgotten corner of space. The Chondrus was a small vessel. It had a crew of 12 Veraci scientists and a single hollow observer. Their job was to map asteroid fields and catalog stellar phenomena. They were not prepared for what they found. "There is a ship ahead," said Navigation Officer Thesic 9. He was young for a Veraci, only 400 years old. His scales were still bright blue, not yet faded to the gray of old age. "It is moving very slowly. I am reading multiple system failures." Captain Varys leaned forward in her command chair. "What species?" Thesic 9 studied his readings. Then he checked them again. Then a third time. "Captain," he said slowly, "the ship appears to be human. That is not possible. The nearest human territory is 30 sectors away." "I am aware." Thesic 9 turned to face her. "But the hull configuration matches human design. The drive signature is unusual, but it is human in origin." Captain Varys ordered the Chondrus closer. As they approached, the ship came into view on their screens. Every member of the crew fell silent. The vessel was enormous. It had once been beautiful, perhaps. The basic shape suggested elegance and purpose, but now it looked like something from a nightmare. The hull was a patchwork of different metals. Some sections were original human steel. Others were clearly asteroid ore, roughly cut and welded in place. There were patches made from materials the Candra's computer could not identify at all. Cables ran along the outside of the ship like veins. Sections of the hull had been cut away and replaced with transparent material, forming crude windows. In some places, the crew could see movement inside. People walking, lights flickering. Life where there should be none. "That ship cannot fly," said the hollow observer. His crystal body hummed with confusion. "I am detecting at least 47 critical system failures. The structural integrity is below minimum standards. The drive system appears to be running on principles that do not exist in Concord engineering databases." "And yet it moves," Captain Varys said quietly. She ordered a communication channel opened. For a long moment, there was only static. Then a voice came through. It was a human woman. She sounded tired but strong. "Unknown vessel. This is Commander Yellen Vasquez of the colony ship Obstinate. We are not hostile. We are low on supplies and our medical bay needs equipment. Can you assist?" Captain Varys did not know how to respond. She looked at Thesic 9. He looked at his readings again. "Captain," he whispered, "the Obstinate was destroyed 40 years ago. It is in the Concord records." "Then how is it here?" He had no answer. Captain Varys opened the channel. "Obstinate, this is Captain Varys of the Concord survey vessel Chondrus. We believed your ship was lost. The records indicate you were destroyed in the Valen Expanse." There was a pause, then Commander Vasquez laughed. It was not a happy sound. It was the laugh of someone who had heard a dark joke too many times. "Yes," she said, "we were supposed to be destroyed. The drive failed. The ship broke apart. Most of our systems went offline. 90% of the original crew died in the first month." Another pause. "But we did not stop. We could not. There were children on board. There were families. We had to keep going." "For 40 years?" "For 40 years." Captain Varys struggled to understand. Veraci ships were built to last for centuries. They had backup systems for their backup systems. They had protocols for every emergency. The idea of a ship surviving for 40 years with 90% crew loss and total system failure was not just unlikely. It was impossible. How? She asked. Commander Vasquez's voice was steady. We fixed what we could. We invented what we could not fix. When our reactor failed, we built a new one from pieces of an alien wreck we found drifting in space. When our food production collapsed, we grew algae in the cargo bays. When our computers died, we taught our children to calculate jump trajectories by hand. She paused. We did what we had to do. Thesic 9 listened to every word. He saved the communication to his personal files. He did not know why. Something told him this was important. Captain Varys sent a report to the Concorde. She requested instructions. The response came quickly. The Obstinate was to remain in place. A Concorde ambassador would arrive to evaluate the situation. The Obstinate was not destroyed after all. It was here. It was real. It was flying on systems that should not work, crewed by humans who should not be alive, traveling through space on pure stubbornness and improvised machinery. The Concorde records were always correct, but today, the records were wrong. And somewhere in the void, Commander Yellen Vasquez stood on a bridge held together by welded metal in desperate hope, looking at stars she had never seen before. She was the granddaughter of the original captain. She had been born on this ship. She had never seen Earth. She had never breathed air that was not recycled through ancient filters. She had never known any life except this one, but she was alive. Her people were alive. The Obstinate was still flying, and that, she thought, was enough. Thesic 9 had been an engineer for 300 years. He had studied at the greatest academies in Varashi space. He had designed ships that could cross the galaxy in weeks. He had written papers on drive theory that were taught in universities across 12 star systems. He thought he understood machines. The Obstinate proved him wrong. The Galactic Concorde had sent him as their official ambassador. His job was simple. He would board the human vessel, evaluate its condition, and write a report. The Concorde needed to know if the ship was safe. They needed to know if the humans were a threat. They needed to understand how this impossible thing had happened. Thesic 9 expected the inspection to take one day. Instead, it took 3 weeks. And when it was over, he was not the same person. Commander Vasquez met him at the airlock. She was a small woman with dark hair turning gray at the edges. Her uniform was patched in a dozen places. Her boots were held together with tape, but her eyes were sharp and her handshake was firm. "Welcome to the Obstinate," she said. "Try not to touch anything that looks like it might explode. Some of it probably will." Thesic 9 thought she was joking. She was not. The first thing he noticed was the smell. The air recyclers on the Obstinate were old. They had been repaired so many times that they barely resembled their original design. The air tasted like metal and plants, and something he could not identify. It was not pleasant, but it was breathable. "Our life support failed completely in year 3, Vasquez explained as they walked. "The original system used chemical filters. When those ran out, we had nothing. People started dying from bad air." "What did you do?" "We grew plants." She pointed to the walls. Thesic 9 looked closer. What he had thought was decoration was actually living vegetation. Vines covered every surface. Small bushes grew in containers bolted to the floor. Tiny flowers bloomed under artificial lights. "One of our biologists had an idea. If we could grow enough plants, they would clean the air for us. So we converted 3 cargo bays into forests. We grew algae in the water tanks. We put plants everywhere." Thesic 9 ran calculations in his head. That should not produce enough oxygen for a crew this size. It did not at first. Vasquez smiled grimly. "We lost 200 people before we got it right. We modified the plants. We changed their genetics to make them produce more oxygen. We invented new species that had never existed before." She touched a flower on the wall. "This one did not exist 20 years ago. Now it grows everywhere. It keeps us alive." They continued deeper into the ship. Thesic 9 saw things he could not explain. Power cables that ran in patterns that made no sense. Machines built from parts of other machines. Computer screens displaying information in languages he did not recognize. "Your navigation system," he said. "How does it function? I see no central computer." "We do not have one. Our main computer died in year 7. We could not replace it, so we trained people instead." She led him to a large room. Inside, a dozen humans sat at tables covered with papers. They were doing mathematics by hand, writing numbers, drawing diagrams, calculating angles and distances with nothing but their minds and simple tools. These are our navigators, Vasquez said. Every jump we make, they calculate by hand. They check each other's work 3 times. They have not made a mistake in 11 years. Thesic 9 stared. In Veraci space, navigation was done by computers that could process millions of calculations per second. The idea of doing it by hand was insane. The idea of doing it accurately was impossible. And yet here they were. He spent days examining the ship's systems. Every hour brought new shocks. The reactor was a hybrid of human and alien technology, built from wreckage they had salvaged from a crashed vessel. The engineers who maintained it did not fully understand how it worked. They only knew that it did, and they had learned through trial and error how to keep it running. The medical bay had no modern equipment. The doctors used tools they had made themselves. They had developed treatments for diseases that did not exist anywhere else, diseases that had evolved on the ship over 40 years of isolation. The children were the strangest part. They had never known anything else. To them, the Obstinate was not a damaged ship barely surviving in the void. It was home. They played in the corridors and studied in classrooms painted with equations. They learned to repair systems before they learned to read. One young boy, maybe 10 years old, showed Thesic 9 how to fix a broken power conduit. The boy's hands moved with perfect confidence. He explained the process in simple words as if teaching a child. "You listen to the sound," the boy said. "If it hums high, the connection is good. If it hums low, something is wrong. You adjust until it sounds right." "That is not proper engineering," Thesic 9 said. The boy shrugged. "It works." On his last day, Thesic 9 sat with Commander Vasquez in her small office. The room was barely larger than a closet. Papers covered every surface. A single photograph hung on the wall, showing a blue planet surrounded by white clouds. "That is Earth," Vasquez said. "I have never seen it. My mother never saw it. But we keep the picture to remind us where we came from." Thesic 9 thought about everything he had seen. The impossible machines, the impossible people, the impossible survival. "I do not understand," he admitted. "By every standard of engineering, your ship should not function. Your systems contradict each other. Your repairs violate basic principles. Nothing here makes sense." Vasquez nodded. "You are right. It should not work. But we did not have the luxury of following rules. We only had the necessity of staying alive. So we tried everything. We failed many times. We lost many people. But we kept trying until something worked." She looked at him with tired eyes. "That is all we know how to do. Try again. Fix it. Keep moving." Thesic 9 returned to the Concorde with his report. It was the longest document he had ever written. It detailed every system, every modification, every impossible solution the humans had invented. His conclusion was simple but honest. "This ship should not exist," he wrote. "Every principle of engineering says it cannot function. And yet it does. I cannot explain why. I can only observe that humans do not seem to understand the concept of impossible. They simply continue until they succeed." The Concorde read his report. They did not understand it either. But they knew one thing for certain. The humans of the Obstinate were dangerous, not because they had weapons. Not because they were hostile, but because they had survived something that should have killed them. And that kind of survival could not be controlled. The Council would have to make a decision. The Galactic Council chamber was the largest room Yellen Vasquez had ever seen. It was built inside an ancient space station at the center of conquered territory. The ceiling rose so high that clouds formed near the top. Thousands of seats surrounded a central platform where speakers addressed the assembly. Representatives from 12 species filled those seats, each one watching her with alien eyes. Vasquez had never felt so small. She stood on the platform alone. Her uniform was clean but old. She had no advisors, no lawyers, no diplomats to speak for her. The Obstinate had no such people. They had engineers and doctors and farmers. They had children who could calculate star positions and old women who remembered songs from Earth. They did not have anyone trained to face a room full of galactic powers, so she would have to do it herself. The Veraci spoke first. Their representative was ancient, with scales faded to pale gray. His voice echoed through the chamber, like the sound of wind through empty caves. The vessel called Obstinate represents a significant danger. Its systems are unstable. Its construction violates every safety standard of the Concorde. It has traveled through protected space without authorization. The humans aboard have developed technology without proper licensing. They have modified their own genetics without approval. They are, in short, criminals. Vasquez wanted to argue. She wanted to shout that they had done what they needed to survive. But she had been told to wait. She stood in silence and let the accusations pile up. The Hollow spoke next. Their representative was a being of living crystal, beautiful and cold. Light passed through their body and scattered into rainbows across the floor. We have analyzed the engineering reports. This ship offends reality. Its existence suggests that universal laws can be ignored through stubbornness. This sets a dangerous example. If other species believe they can violate physics through determination, it will lead to chaos and destruction. The Keth Orin representative was a massive creature covered in natural armor. Their species was known for war. They had conquered dozens of worlds before joining the Concorde. When they spoke, their voice was like grinding stone. We see this differently. The humans have demonstrated survival capabilities beyond any other known species. They are dangerous, yes, but not because their ship is unstable. They are dangerous because they refuse to die. They looked at certain death and simply continued. Such a species cannot be controlled. They must be contained before they become a threat to all of us. More species spoke. Some were curious about the humans. Some were afraid. Some wanted to study them like animals in a laboratory. None of them asked what the humans themselves wanted. Finally, the council speaker called for Vasquez to respond. She walked to the center of the platform. Her boots made small sounds on the polished floor. She looked up at the thousands of faces watching her. She thought about her grandmother, who had been the captain when the drive failed. She thought about her mother, who had died keeping the life support running. She thought about the children on the Obstinate, who had never seen a sunrise. She spoke in simple words. She had no fancy speeches. She only had the truth. You say our ship is dangerous. You are right. It barely holds together. Every day something breaks. Every week we lose someone to accident or sickness or old age. We have no proper medicine, no proper food, no proper anything. We survive on hope and hard work and the knowledge that if we stop, we die. She paused. The chamber was silent. You say we violated your laws. You are right about that too. We modified our plants because the original ones could not keep us alive. We changed our genetics because the alternative was death. We built machines from alien wreckage because we had nothing else. Every choice we made was a choice between breaking your rules and dying. We chose to live. The Veraci representative shifted. The Hollow hummed with some emotion Vasquez could not read. You want to know how we survived for 40 years when we should have died in the first month? I will tell you. We did not know we were supposed to die. No one told us it was impossible. So we just kept trying. When the drive failed, we built a new one. When the computer died, we learned to think for ourselves. When we ran out of food, we grew more. Every time the universe said it was over, we asked ourselves one question. She looked at the Keth Oran, the warriors who thought humans were too dangerous to live free. We asked, what if we try one more thing? And then we tried it. And if it did not work, we tried something else. For 40 years. Every single day. That is not genius. That is not special technology. That is just refusing to give up. The council debated for hours after she finished. Vasquez was taken to a small room to wait. She sat on a bench that was not designed for human bodies and stared at the wall. She did not know what would happen. She did not know if her words had made any difference. When the council finally reached their decision, she was brought back to the chamber. The speaker announced the verdict. The Obstinate would be seized by Concorde authorities. Its technology would be studied and cataloged. The human crew would be relocated to a colony world selected by the council. They would live under Concorde supervision. They would not be allowed to build ships or modify technology. They would be safe and protected and controlled. This is for your own good, the speaker said. You have suffered greatly. Now you can rest. Vasquez stood very still. She thought about the children on her ship. She thought about the old engineers who had spent their whole lives keeping the Obstinate flying. She thought about what it would mean to take them from their home and put them on some alien world where they would be watched and managed like dangerous animals. She thought about her grandmother's words passed down through 3 generations. Never stop moving. Never let them take your sky. No, she said quietly. The chamber fell silent. I am sorry, Vasquez continued, her voice growing stronger. But we will not accept this. The obstinate is our home. It is all we have. It is all we know. We will not give it up. You have no choice, the speaker replied. This is the decision of the council. Then the council is wrong. The security forces moved toward her. She did not resist. She let them escort her back to the waiting ship that would return her to the obstinate. But she smiled as she walked, because she knew something the council did not know. The obstinate had not survived for 40 years by following orders. That night, before the Concorde fleet could arrive, the human ship vanished. Its patchwork engines fired up, its improvised navigation systems calculated a course, and it slipped away into the darkness between stars. The council was furious. They had never been defied so openly. They sent orders to every sector. Find the human ship. Bring it back. The hunt had begun. The Concorde fleet was magnificent. 20 warships, each one larger than the obstinate. They had weapons that could crack moons. They had sensors that could detect a single life form from 1,000,000 kilometers away. They had engines that could cross star systems in hours. They had every advantage. The obstinate had none. Commander Vasquez studied the tactical display in the cramped room that served as their war center. Her officers stood around her. None of them were military. There was Elena, the chief engineer who had kept the ship running for 30 years. There was Marcus, the head navigator who could calculate jump trajectories faster than anyone. There was old Dr. Chen, who had been born on the ship and had never known any other life. They are faster than us, Elena said. They will catch us in 3 days. Then we need to make sure they cannot follow our trail, Vasquez replied. The first trick was simple. They headed for a radiation cloud near the edge of the sector. Concorde ships avoided such areas because the radiation interfered with their sensitive systems. The obstinate had no sensitive systems left. Everything had been rebuilt so many times that it could work in almost any condition. They spent 2 days inside the cloud, hiding while the fleet searched outside. When they finally emerged, they had gained a week of distance. Thesic 9 was on one of the pursuit ships. He had not wanted to come. After his inspection of the obstinate, something had changed in him. He had seen what the humans could do. He had met their children. He had watched them work together as a family, not just a crew. Part of him hoped they would escape. But he was voracious. He followed orders, and his orders were to track the human ship. They are heading toward the Keth system, he reported. It makes no sense. That area is empty. There is nothing there but dead planets and asteroid fields. The fleet commander disagreed. They are desperate. They are making random choices. We will catch them soon. But Thesic 9 was not so sure. He had read his own report about the obstinate. These humans did not make random choices. Everything they did had purpose. If they were heading toward the Keth system, they had a reason. The humans hid in the shadow of a dead gas giant. Its atmosphere had bled away millions of years ago, leaving only a cold stone sphere the size of a small star. The obstinate settled into a crater on the dark side and powered down all non-essential systems. They waited in the cold and the silence while the Concorde fleet passed overhead. Inside the ship, the crew gathered in the main hall. It was the largest open space they had, originally a cargo bay before it was converted into a community center. Children sat with their parents. Old people held hands with young. Everyone knew what was happening. Everyone knew the risk. Vasquez stood before them. She looked at the faces she had known her whole life. She thought about what to say. In the end, she kept it simple. We have been running for 3 weeks. The Concorde will not stop chasing us. They have decided that we are dangerous, and they want to put us somewhere we can be controlled. She paused. I will not let that happen. But I need to know if you are with me. If you want to surrender, we can do that. They will not hurt us. They will just take away our home and our freedom. Old Dr. Chen stood up. He was over 70 years old, the oldest person on the ship. His hands shook with age, but his voice was steady. I was born in this ship. My parents died keeping it flying. My children grew up in these corridors. I have never seen Earth. I have never breathed open air. But this is my home. I will not give it up. One by one, others stood, young and old, engineers and doctors, teachers and farmers. Every single person in that room rose to their feet. Then we keep running, Vasquez said. The fleet found them eventually. No matter how clever the humans were, 20 warships with advanced sensors would eventually find one damaged vessel. They cornered the Obstinate near a neutron star, a spinning remnant of a dead sun that pulsed with deadly radiation. The fleet commander sent a message. Human vessel, you are surrounded. Surrender now and you will not be harmed. If you attempt to flee, we will be forced to disable your ship. People may die. This is your final warning. Vasquez looked at the neutron star. It was spinning fast once every few seconds. Its gravity warped space around it like a whirlpool. Anything that got too close would be torn apart by tidal forces. Marcus, the navigator, had been running calculations for hours. Now he looked up from his papers. It can work, he said quietly. Are you sure? No, but it is our only chance. Vasquez opened a channel to the fleet. Concord vessels, this is Commander Vasquez. We will not surrender. We would rather die free than live as prisoners. She paused. And we do not intend to die today. She gave the order. The Obstinate turned toward the neutron star and accelerated. The fleet commander watched in disbelief. They are flying into the gravity well. They will be destroyed. Thesic 9 stared at his screens. He understood what the humans were doing. The neutron star's rotation created something called frame dragging, a distortion in space-time itself. If a ship entered at exactly the right angle with exactly the right speed, it could use that distortion like a slingshot. The ship would be accelerated to incredible velocity and thrown across multiple sectors in an instant. But the calculations required were impossibly complex. The margin for error was almost zero. A mistake of a single degree would tear the ship apart. They cannot possibly navigate that accurately, the commander said. Their computers are dead. They have no proper navigation systems. They do not need computers, Thesic 9 replied. They have people. The Obstinate entered the gravity well. On board, Marcus shouted adjustments while his team worked the controls by hand. Elena fought to keep the engines stable as they screamed under impossible stress. The hull buckled, panels flew off into space. Systems failed across every deck. People held onto whatever they could find and prayed. The ship should have broken apart. It should have been crushed by the gravity. It should have failed in 1,000 different ways. But the Obstinate had never done what it should. In a flash of distorted light, the ship was gone. It shot out of the gravity well at speeds that made the Concorde sensors glitch. By the time the fleet understood what had happened, the Obstinate was 3 sectors away, still flying, still damaged, still alive. Thesic 9 watched the readings in silence. Around him, the fleet officers argued about what to do. Some wanted to pursue. Others said it was impossible. The humans had escaped into a region of space that would take weeks to reach. Quietly, Thesic 9 deleted the tracking data from his console. He removed every record of the Obstinate's trajectory. When asked later, he said the data had been corrupted by the neutron star's radiation. No one questioned him. After all, he was a respected engineer. His word was trusted. But that night, alone in his cabin, Thesic 9 thought about Commander Vasquez and her impossible ship. He thought about the children who could navigate by hand. He thought about the engineers who kept flying through stubbornness alone. He began to write. The Obstinate was never seen by the Galactic Concorde again. For years, the Council sent search parties. They checked every sector, every system, every forgotten corner of known space. They found nothing. The ship had vanished as completely as if it had never existed. Some officials concluded that it had finally fallen apart, destroyed by the damage from the neutron star escape. Others were not so sure. Stories began to spread. A trading vessel near the outer rim reported seeing strange lights in an asteroid field. When they investigated, they found mining equipment that no one had left behind. The tools were rough but functional, made from salvaged metal and welded with unfamiliar techniques. A colony world in the far sectors received an anonymous transmission. It contained detailed instructions for modifying plant genetics to survive in harsh conditions. The colonists had been struggling to grow food in their difficult soil. After following the instructions, Their crops flourished. A small species called the Feni, who had been ignored by the Concord for centuries, suddenly developed new technologies. When asked where they learned such things, their leaders only smiled. Friends taught us, they said. Friends who understand what it means to be small in a big universe. The council grew concerned. Someone was interfering with their carefully controlled galaxy. Someone was sharing knowledge without permission, helping species who were supposed to remain dependent on Concord guidance. They suspected humans, but they could prove nothing. Thesic 9 retired from Concord service 50 years after the Obstinate disappeared. He was considered one of the greatest engineers of his generation, but in his later years he had stopped designing ships. Instead, he spent his time writing. He wrote about engineering philosophy. He wrote about survival. He wrote about what he called the human variable. His final work was a document titled On the Nature of Human Persistence. He translated it into 400 languages and distributed it freely across the galaxy. The Concord tried to suppress it, but information wants to be free, and this information spread faster than they could contain it. The document became famous. Species who had never met humans read it and wondered. Young engineers quoted it when their teachers told them something was impossible. Rebels against the Concord used it as inspiration for their resistance. The final passage was the most quoted of all. I have studied 10,000 vessels in my career. I have seen the elegant ships of the Varashi, designed to perfect specifications and built with flawless precision. I have seen the living vessels of the Hollow, grown from crystal over centuries. I have seen the war barges of the Kethoran, armored and armed beyond imagination. All of these ships were built to function. All of them were designed to succeed. Their creators knew exactly what they were making and exactly how it would work. The Obstinate was different. It was built to fail. Every component, every system, every calculation said it could not survive. The drive was wrong. The life support was wrong. The navigation was wrong. By every measure of proper engineering, the ship should have become a tomb drifting in the void. And yet it did not. It survived. It flew. It carried its people across the galaxy for decades, held together by nothing more than determination and improvised repairs. I spent years trying to understand how this was possible. I studied the technical aspects. I analyzed the modifications. I calculated the probabilities. None of it made sense. The mathematics said the ship should have died 1,000 times over. Eventually, I stopped looking at the ship. I started looking at the people. The humans of the Obstinate were not special. They were not stronger or smarter or more advanced than any other species. They had no secret technology, no hidden advantages. What they had was something simpler and more powerful. They had the inability to accept defeat. When their drive failed, they did not give up. They built a new one from pieces they found floating in space. When their computer died, they did not surrender to the void. They taught their children to calculate by hand. When their food ran out, they did not lie down and wait for death. They grew new food in the walls and floors of their ship. Every time the universe told them it was over, they refused to listen. Every time logic said they should die, they asked a simple question. What if we try one more thing? This is what the Concord does not understand about humans. We build ships that work. We design systems that function. We create technology that succeeds because we understand the rules and follow them. Humans do not follow rules. They do not accept limitations. They do not understand the concept of impossible. When you tell them something cannot be done, they do not believe you. They simply try until they succeed or die trying. The Obstinate was not a ship that worked. It was a ship that persisted. It kept going long after it should have stopped. It survived long after it should have died. And it did so because its people refused to accept any other outcome. In the cold mathematics of the universe, most variables can be calculated. Speed, mass, energy, time. These things can be measured and predicted. They follow laws that do not change. But there is one variable that cannot be calculated. It is the variable of will, the determination to continue when logic says to stop, the refusal to accept defeat even when defeat is certain. This is the variable that humans possess in quantities that other species cannot match. I do not know where the Obstinate went. Perhaps it found Earth and warned humanity about the galaxy that awaits them. Perhaps it still wanders the void, carrying its people from star to star. Perhaps it finally fell apart, its long journey ended at last. But I do know this. The obstinate changed the galaxy simply by existing. It proved that the rules we thought were absolute can be broken by those who refuse to accept them. It showed that survival is not about having the best technology or the most resources. It is about persistence. It is about will. It is about asking again and again, what if we try one more thing? The Concord fears humans because we cannot predict them. We cannot control them. We cannot fit them into our careful calculations. I do not fear them. I admire them. And I hope that when my own species faces a challenge that seems impossible, we will remember the lesson of the obstinate. Never stop trying. Never accept defeat. Never stop asking what if. This is the nature of human persistence, and in all my years of study, I have found no force in the universe more powerful. Thesic IX died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 800 years. By then, his writings had spread to every corner of the galaxy. The Concord's power had begun to fade. New species were rising, inspired by stories of a ship that refused to die. And somewhere in the endless darkness between stars, a ship that should not exist continued its journey. Its hull was patched 1,000 times over. Its engines burned on principles that no one fully understood. Its crew had grown and changed across generations, but they still remembered where they came from and what they had survived. The children of the obstinate still learned to calculate star positions by hand. They still grew plants in the corridors. They still told stories of Earth, that distant blue world none of them had ever seen. And when their ship groaned with age and systems failed, and everything seemed hopeless, they still asked themselves the same question their ancestors had asked 40 years ago. What if we try one more thing? The answer was always the same. They tried. They fixed. They kept moving. The obstinate flew on. It had no right to exist. It violated every rule of engineering and survival. It was impossible in every way that mattered. But it persisted, because that is what humans do. They persist. Against all odds, against all logic, against the cold indifference of the universe itself. They persist. And sometimes, against all probability, they win.